There's a silence that doesn't scream. It doesn't slam doors. It doesn't block, delete, or explain. It just disappears. And if you've ever been tangled up with a narcissist, you know how that silence haunts. But what if I told you it's not your silence that breaks them? Not really. What breaks them is something far quieter, far deeper, far more devastating. You see, narcissists are not fearless. They are terrified. Not of being alone, they feed on loneliness. And they make others feel it. Not of being hated, hate still keeps them in control. What truly breaks a narcissist is losing access to the one thing they depend on more than air. Not admiration, not attention, reflection, because without someone to project onto, without someone to manipulate, mirror, and mold, they vanish into the very emptiness they've spent their entire lives avoiding. And that's what we're going to uncover here. Not just why no contact stings, but what happens when the person who once bent themselves in half just to be enough suddenly stops trying. Not out of revenge, not out of bitterness, but from a place so quiet it unnerves them. Self-worth. This isn't about games. This is about truth. And for anyone who's ever questioned themselves while walking away from someone who rewrote reality every time it got too honest, this one's for you. Because the moment you stop playing, the moment you stop chasing, the moment you stop waiting for them to wake up and see you, you become something they can't handle. Unreachable. And in that space, you stop being a mirror and start being a mystery. If you've ever loved someone who left you doubting your own memory, your own instincts, your own soul, stay here. You are not alone, and no, you're not crazy. This video is more than just insight. It's a reflection of your pain, your strength, and the quiet power you hold when you finally choose you. If this speaks to you, hit that like button. Subscribe to the channel if you want more moments like this. Because sometimes, healing starts with hearing your story in someone else's voice. You don't notice it at first. The break doesn't come with sirens or shattered glass. It comes in waves. Soft ones. Almost unnoticeable. It starts when you stop checking your phone. Then when you stop rehearsing how you'll respond if they reach out. Then one day you don't even care if they do. That's when something inside them shifts. See, a narcissist survives off your energy. Not your love. They don't understand love the way you do. Not your attention, though they crave it like a drug. What they feed on is your reaction. You bending, you breaking, you trying harder, you explaining yourself for the 5th time even though they heard you the first. You staying up at night wondering what you did wrong. They don't need to win. They just need to matter, even if it's through destruction. And when you stop feeding that cycle, they don't rage right away. Not always. Sometimes they get quiet first, confused, then annoyed, then angry, then desperate. Because here's what no one tells you. You were the stable one, the constant, the one who showed up even when they didn't, the one who forgave too much, who explained too much, who loved even when it hurt. And when you're gone, there's no one left to perform for, no one left to impress, no one left to punish, no one left to blame. That mirror they used to look into every day, shattered, because that's what you were to them. A mirror, not a person, not a partner, a reflection, one they could mold to avoid looking at themselves, one that nodded when they denied, that smiled when they hurt you, that stayed even when they disappeared. So when that mirror is no longer there, they're left staring into the black void of their own emptiness. And that's what really breaks a narcissist. Not your silence, your self-possession, because for the first time, you're not reacting. You're not hurting where they can see. You're not playing your part in their endless drama. You're absent. And absence is their nightmare. Not because they miss you, but because they can't reach you. And if they can't reach you, they can't control the narrative. You stopped giving them a character to gaslight. And now, the story unravels. This is where the begging begins, or the smearing, or the pretending like they never cared. But you know what all of that is? Panic. Because when you stop orbiting them, their entire world collapses. And maybe, just maybe, that's the justice you never knew you needed. It creeps in slowly, the realization that the person who once had a grip on your soul can't even get a glimpse of it now. They can stalk your profile, try to bait you with passive-aggressive posts, slide into your DMs with fake casualness, send a just checking in text like they didn't rip you apart the last time they spoke. But you're not biting, because you're not hungry for the crumbs anymore. And that unshakable stillness in you, that's what they can't stomach. You have to understand something. A narcissist isn't just afraid of being alone. They're terrified of being irrelevant. When you stop reacting, they start shrinking. Not visibly, no. They'll still act like they're above it all, still post like they're thriving, still talk like they don't miss a thing. But inside, they're crumbling, because without an audience, their performance means nothing. You were never just a person to them. You were a stage, a screen, a surface to project their fantasy onto. They weren't in love with you. They were in love with the version of themselves they saw in your eyes. And now, that version is gone. Now they're left with themselves, unfiltered, unloved, unmasked. That's when the rage turns inward, or sideways, or backwards into the past, where they rewrite history and turn themselves into the victim. They'll say you were cold. They'll say you were dramatic. They'll say you ghosted them, blocked them, mistreated them, because the idea that they were the problem, unbearable. They don't know how to self-reflect. They only know how to self-protect. So they scramble. They try to replace you. They try to replicate the power they had over you with someone else. And for a moment, it might look like they've moved on, but you know better. You've seen that cycle. You've lived in it. Love bombing, devaluing, discarding, repeating. It's not a new relationship. It's just a rerun. And deep down, they know it too. Because no matter how many replacements they find, none of them will ever be as easy to break as you once were. And you're not even angry anymore. That's what breaks them most. Not the block number, not the unanswered texts, not even the silence, but your peace, because they always thought you'd come back. They always thought you needed them more than they needed you. They always thought they'd be able to twist your heart just one more time, but now they see it. That look in your eyes, even if they can only imagine it, that quiet in your soul, that dignity, it's the one thing they can't steal, can't fake, can't destroy, because it was never theirs. There's a moment it happens quietly when the narcissist realizes they no longer live in your head. They used to, rent-free, taking up space in your thoughts, your fears, your regrets. You used to replay conversations, trying to find the part where you went wrong. You used to stay up at night crafting the perfect message you'd never send. You used to carry their mood like it was your fault, their distance like it was your punishment. But not anymore. Now they knock, and there's no answer. Not because you're hiding, but because you've moved out. They reach for you in the only ways they know how. Through guilt, through flattery, through crisis, through "I've changed." But change doesn't come from fear, and fear is all they've ever known. They don't want healing. They want access. Access to your softness, access to your forgiveness, access to the pieces of you that believed love meant tolerating pain. But those parts are gone now, or at least they've grown teeth. And when a narcissist realizes you now have boundaries, real ones, not the kind you threaten but don't enforce, they panic, because boundaries mean reality, and reality is their greatest enemy. In their world, they are the misunderstood hero, the victim of your overreactions, the saint who just couldn't win. But you know better now. You know that love isn't about being drained. You know that connection without respect is a prison. You know that peace feels nothing like walking on eggshells. And suddenly, your absence isn't just a punishment, it's a mirror, one they can't avoid. Because when they look at what you've become without them, they see what they never could be. Whole, grounded, untouchable. You stopped explaining. You stopped proving. You stopped trying to make someone see your worth when they were never looking in the first place. That's what shatters their illusion. Because it wasn't you who wasn't enough. It was them who needed you to believe that, so they didn't have to face the black hole inside themselves. And now you've walked away from that gravitational pull. You've stopped orbiting. You've stepped into your own gravity. You are no longer their mirror. You are your own reflection. Clear, strong, sacred. And the narcissist? They're still looking for someone to blame for the thing they can't name. But it's already too late. You've outgrown the cage. You've outloved the chaos. You've become someone they can't reach and can never replace. Admit it, they never do. But the truth is, when you left, you took something with you they thought they'd always have. Not just access, not just attention, but power. Because what really breaks a narcissist more than no contact, more than being ignored, more than being blocked, is realizing they don't own your story anymore. They can rewrite it for others. They can smear your name. They can say you were unstable, cold, controlling, dramatic. But you're not defending yourself. And in your silence, there's something terrifying to them: dignity. Because narcissists are masters of chaos. But when you stop dancing in their storm, when you choose stillness, grace, truth, they have nothing to push against. No story to spin, no fuel to feed on, no chaos to control. They lash out, or worse, they love bomb again. I miss you. You meant everything to me. No one ever understood me like you. But you've heard it all before. The poetry that turned into punishment, the softness that masked a switchblade, the sweetness that came right before the cold. You know the rhythm now. And you're not playing. Because something sacred happened when you stopped reacting. You started healing. Not loud healing, not aesthetic healing, but the real kind. The kind where you cry in the car because you finally realize it wasn't your fault. The kind where you delete the message you were about to send and breathe instead. The kind where you sit with your loneliness and learn how to make it a friend instead of a prison. That kind of healing, they can't follow you into it, because it requires something they've always run from: accountability, honesty, depth. And that's why no contact isn't what truly breaks them. It's what comes after no contact, when they see you rising, not because someone else saved you, but because you saved yourself. They start to realize you were never weak. You were loyal. You weren't naive. You were hopeful. You weren't too emotional. You were intensely alive, and they couldn't handle that. Because the truth is, narcissists don't want real love. They want control dressed up as closeness. They want worship disguised as partnership. They want mirrors, not humans. But you broke the mirror, and now they're left staring at a self they don't recognize and don't know how to fix. You became the one thing they never expected: unreachable. Not because you're hiding, but because you've healed, and that's what really breaks them. Right for me said, there's a kind of power that doesn't shout. It doesn't need revenge. It doesn't seek to prove. It simply lives. That's the kind of power you've stepped into. Not the kind they understand. They only know how to dominate, perform, manipulate. But real power, that's choice. That's clarity. That's finally knowing your worth isn't tied to how much pain you can survive. You stopped playing the game, and in doing so, you ended it. And maybe you still have days where it stings, where the memories sneak in, where your heart aches for the version of them you thought was real. That's okay. Grief doesn't mean you made the wrong choice. It means you're honest enough to feel, which is something they'll never do. They're still out there, performing, pretending, projecting, still chasing the next mirror, still running from themselves. But you are no longer chasing closure. You became it. You are the quiet they can't sit in. You are the stillness they can't understand. You are the mirror that shattered and refused to be pieced back together just so they could avoid their own reflection. You didn't just walk away. You transformed. And in that transformation, you did what they never thought you could. You made peace with the truth. Even when it hurt, even when it meant losing the fantasy, even when it meant facing the terrifying thought that love shouldn't feel like begging, because you remembered who you were before you forgot. Before they twisted your truth, before they made you doubt your heart, you remembered the quiet strength in your voice, the softness that wasn't weakness, the deep, powerful love you carry, the kind that no narcissist could ever understand, let alone deserve. That's what really breaks them. Not that you left, not that you cut them off, but that you reclaimed yourself. And no matter how hard they try, no matter how many circles they run in, they will never, ever touch you again, because you didn't just survive. You awakened. Thank you for being here, for feeling this with me, for choosing yourself, even when it was the hardest thing to do. If this spoke to you, if it cracked something open, if it reminded you of your strength in even the smallest way, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and share this with someone who's ready to remember who they are. This isn't just a video, it's a step back to you, back to truth, back to freedom,